The season for fall makeup is finally upon us, so I thought we would go ahead and start off with a bang by talking about eyeshadows that are perfect for the fall. We are going to focus on palettes, although I do have one release that is a collection of fall eyeshadows. We're going to talk about them, we're going to swatch them, and I'm going to show you some inspo looks. My important disclaimer is that two of these palettes are not specifically fall themed, but they absolutely do have some tones that are perfect for this season. And they're new releases, so it's a perfect time to talk about them. So let's go ahead and get into it. First, from Glaminatrix, we have the Bonfire Palette. Glaminatrix is an Australian indie brand that I have really come to know and love over the past several years, and the formula in their palettes has just continued to improve. At the time that I'm making this video, this palette is on pre-order with a plan to start shipping in early September, which is right around the corner. This is one of the most beautiful fall color stories that I've seen in a while. You get 6 mattes and 6 shimmers, and I really like that this palette is laid out in little quads. So you have a green quad, a sort of more orangey quad, and a cool tone neutral quad. The shimmers from Glaminatrix have become so incredibly special. Here's what the first 3 shimmers look like swatched on my fingertips, and I'm going to show you what they look like on the back of my hand as well. You get one iridescent. That iridescent is so fiery and beautiful. And something that I found with a lot of the Glaminatrix palettes recently in general is that they have a very kind of topper-like formula. A lot of the shades are PC, a little bit sheer, and very sparkly. And here's what the second set of shimmers look like swatched on my fingertips. You get a beautiful bright green and an orange. And you also get a very special version of one of the blue-brown duochromes that I have talked about in a couple of my other videos. I think what a lot of people are going to appreciate about this palette too is that you can get some colorful looks, but you can also get some very kind of special neutral looks. And here is what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. I gotta say, at first glance, I wasn't expecting to enjoy this palette quite as much as I ended up enjoying it. In the look that I created, I just had a really easy time working with this formula. Starting off with the grungy green matte, I went ahead and put it on the inner portion of the lid and on the lower lash line. Then I took the orange matte and I put it on the outer portion of the lid and the corresponding lower part of the lash line. I took the green shimmer embers and I put it on the inner portion of the lid, and then the orange shimmer wildflower on the outer portion of the lid. And here is the completed look. I think one of the things that pleased me the most about working with this palette is that those lighter mattes really did pop on my skin tone. With light and bright colorful mattes like that, that's not always easy to do. The second release I wanted to talk about is actually a collection of single shadows, and these just launched on August 22nd. This is also a very fall specific launch in my opinion. It includes a total of 15 eyeshadows, 5 of which are chrome, 5 of which are shimmer shadows, and the other 5 are matte shadows. This set of shimmer shadows is quite smooth in texture. There's no flaky shades, so I think it's going to work for a wide variety of skin types. Here is what all 5 shimmers look like swatched in the back of my hand, and I am going to show them in another lighting as well, just so you can appreciate those shifts a bit better. My favorite shimmers are the 2 right at the top, Firestorm, which has a golden orange base with a really fiery shift, and Witching Star right underneath that one, which has sort of a blackened kind of green base with intense red-orange sparkle and shift throughout. Here is what the 5 shimmer shadows look like swatched on my arm. My favorite of these is the 2 green shimmers. I think Terra does greens so well, especially really unique greens and grungy greens. And here is what the 5 mattes look like swatched on my arm. For my first look, I went in with the matte shade Sundial, put it on the inner portion of the lid. I put Regolith on the outer portion of the lid, and then I had to use Firestorm. I was so excited about this shimmer, and this is my first completed look. Easy, impactful, and foolproof. For my second look, I started off with Moon Moss. Deepened up the outer corner with Hyper Void. Oh, this green matte is stunning. Then I put the shade Witching Star all over the lid. I wasn't sure how it was going to pair with the green mattes, but I ended up absolutely loving it. Another easy, impactful look. This next palette I'm going to show I am super excited about. It's a brand new palette that's a collaboration between my friend Noopur Makeup and Bella Beaute Bar. I do highly recommend that you watch her video where she goes over this palette and introduces it because she includes so much detail. This is not specifically a fall palette, but it has a lot of tones in it that I think will work absolutely beautifully for fall. And if you know her, you know that this color story is absolutely perfect. You get an even split of mattes and shimmers, and the mattes have a lot of really beautiful, nuanced, muted tones. And the shimmers are also so interesting. She created them so that they could be layered in all different kinds of ways because I know that one of her favorite things to do is to layer her shimmers and to just customize shades in general. This palette also includes some of the holochromes that Bella Beaute Bar I think is particularly known for. And you just get a really great variety of textures and finishes in this one. And none of these shades are emollient either. So in that way, I really do think that they're going to work for a wide variety of skin types. I also like that with each of the shimmers, it's very easy to conceptualize which matte you might want to pair it with. And here is what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. Starting off my look with the shade Vayu and placing it all over the crease and the lower lash line. Then I took that deep purple dusk and placed it in the four corners of the eye to create a halo shape. I placed that beautiful light purple matte into the center of the lid. I placed the deeper purple shimmer Harmony into the center of the lid on top of that purple matte. And then, of course, I had to layer balance on top of Harmony just to do a little shadow cascade of my own. And here is my completed look. I really love how this came out. And I'm very excited about using this palette more in general. The matte I didn't use in my first look and I think is so incredibly perfect for fall is that burgundy matte. It's called Aries. The palette is code eligible and you can use her code, which is Noopur. The next palette that I have is also not a fall specific palette. It's called Magnetic Mineralia, and this was a collaboration palette between Dieverune Cosmetics and my friend Andromeda. I think that this is another really unique and cool color story. I actually think that it goes really well with the palette that I just showed in collaboration with Bella Beaute Bar and Noopur. You get some really beautiful muted purples and gray tones, and a lot of really beautiful neutral shimmers as well. I think that these two palettes are just really beautiful companion palettes in my humble opinion. I've honestly never seen a color story quite like this before. You do have those muted tones, but you also have those brighter green pops, and you get a really cool iridescent that's on the bottom row. To me, the formula from Dieverune is very reliable. The only issue that I had was the kind of really light green matte. It does have a little bit of a thinner formula, so you have to really build it up to get the intensity that you want on my skin tone. The shimmers from Dieverune really sparkle. I've talked about their iridescent palette dewdrops on this channel quite a bit. Here is what the first three shimmers look like swatched on my fingertips. And here is what they look like swatched in the back of my hand. Here is what swatches of the whole palette looks like on my arm. And you get a good mix of warm and cool tones in this color story. Starting off my look, I actually created a green to purple gradient. I don't have all of the blending steps, but I do point to the shades, and I repeated the same steps on the lower lash line. I placed the iridescent on the inner portion of the lid, and then I went in with that deep green and purple shimmer on the outer portion of the lid, and here is my finished look. I really love how this look turned out. This color story definitely pushes me out of my comfort zone and in a really good way. And I think you can see what I mean by it's definitely not a fall specific palette, but there's some great tones in here that I think will work really well for fall. The last palette that I'm going to talk about is from another small indie brand based out of Australia. This is called Cloudicos. I've actually mentioned them in some other videos as well. One of my very favorite things from Cloudicos is their little pocket palettes. They have a palette for every season except spring. Their spring palette is actually coming out pretty soon, which of course makes sense because they are an Australian brand. In my hands is Pocket Autumn, and all of these palettes are all shimmer palettes. They have a very kind of wide variety of textures and finishes, and this color story is very fall. You have a few shades that are more neutral leaning, and then you also have a lot of warm and golden tones. What I've come to love about these palettes so much is how compact they are, and each of the shades is so high impact that you don't need a lot of product. I believe that this is the first palette that we got a couple of satins as well. This palette really was designed with day-to-day life in mind, but it also includes some really kind of special and sparkly shimmers that can be amped up for more of an evening look. Especially that really sparkly shimmer right in the middle of the palette and that red tone shimmer that I'm swatching right now. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched in the back of my hand. For my look, I started off with this red shimmer and I created a wing. I was directly inspired by a look that was shared on the Cloudicos website. It was done by an Instagram account that I absolutely adore called MSI. Just couldn't get it out of my head after I saw it. And then I took that kind of yellow shimmer and I topped it gently all over the lid, and I put the iridescent on my inner corner and brow bone. And here is the final look. The brand owner is also always creating and sharing looks using her products, so there's never any shortage of inspiration when it comes to using these products. Now that we've had a chance to go through 5 different eyeshadow releases, I'd love to know what you think of these different color stories and looks. And if you feel inspired about fall themed makeup, I'd also love to hear about what you think of this video format, because I was thinking of doing a similar style to this, but only focusing on older eyeshadow palettes. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.